Now we have seen the past of our economic growth. What's the future will look like? Can we do some predictions for the future growth? Uh, in this section, I will provide you guys with some facts or ideas to help you to think about the future. So this figure shows you a very concerning fact that the growth is actually slowing down in most developed countries. So for this figure shows you the five developed countries and their growth rate over time. So you can see the decreasing pattern is uniform across these countries, right? So this fact is quite concerning because if we look into the future, will the uh, growth rate keep decreasing until we become totally no growth, or can we stimulate the growth again to kind of recover the growth rate, right? So that's a very big question for the future, right? So remember, we have that four wheels for the labor productivity growth. So a natural question would be, how can we improve these four factors to stimulate growth, right? So can we increase capital to stimulate growth? The answer is yes and no. If you can see the figure here, shows you the investment uh, as a percent of GDP in five countries. So for high income countries like Japan, Germany, and US, the investment uh, percent is relatively low, right? But for Korea, even it was really high, but after it becomes high income countries, that rate decrease. Only China can keep a very high investment share of the GDP, right? So for developing countries like China, they can invest to increase capital worker ratio, so such that they can improve the labor productivity. We call that process the capital deepening, right? But it's not necessarily true for developed countries. As you can see here, all the developed countries, they don't have a very high investment intensity. So why is that? The answer is the law of diminishing returns. This figure shows you the relationship between capital per worker and output per worker. So you can see this line is curved, so the slope is getting smaller and smaller. In the beginning, it's quite steep. Later, it's flattened, right? So that shows you the law of diminishing return, which means as economies increase human and physical capital, the marginal returns to this capital will decrease, right? So suppose uh, for developing countries, low-income countries, the workers start for a very little amount of capital, right? If we give them more and in capital, their labor productivity got increased a lot, right? But for high income countries, they started from a very relatively high point, and if still we give them more capital, the labor productivity improvement is fairly little, right? That's the problem. We can go back to our moving company example. If we started from a very low level of capital, like 20 workers, only one truck, we give them one additional truck that will almost double their productivity, right? Because now they have two trucks. But if they started from a very high capital stock, like 20 workers, 20 trucks, now we give them one more extra truck, will almost do nothing, right? Because every worker already has a truck, right? So that one more extra truck will contribute almost zero productivity, right? That's the diminishing return. That's the problem of why high-income countries cannot keep increasing their capital to improve labor productivity, right? Because capitals will not last forever. Machines will break down and houses will fall down. We call it depreciation, right? So if for developed countries, they have a very large capital stock. So large capital stock means there will be more depreciation, right? So if you have 100 machines, there will be one breakdown each year. If you have 1,000 machines, there will be 10 breaking down each year. Right? So more capital stock means more depreciation, but less productivity improvement, right? So it's like the cost is increasing, the benefit is decreasing. So the process of capital deepening cannot last forever. It will stop if the depreciation exceeds the value of investment, right? So especially for the developed countries to increase capital kind of is not a good solution to stimulate long-term growth. Remember, our first wheel, the technology improvement, uh, can can also increase our total output and the labor productivity, right? Is this promising? The answer is we are not clear yet, but it's not that optimistic. This figure shows us that papers and patents, they are being less likely to break with the past. Right? So this index measures how likely a new paper and patent will be different from previous ones and create a new direction. Right? So which means our scientific findings will be less innovative, right? And our patents will be also less likely to break the previous ones. So we will have less likely to have totally different products than before. Right? So it can somehow indicates that it's harder and harder to keep that pace of expanding our ideas and products, right? This figure shows you the similar idea. Uh, our ideas are harder to find. The green line shows the number of researchers. So we have more and more researchers or more research inputs, but we have less and less research outputs. So that's the blue line, the research output productivity. Right? So we have more inputs, but we have less outputs in research, in technology improvement. So it seems like technology improvement also follows that kind of uh, diminishing returns law. Right? So it's kind of not optimistic for the future growth, but it's very hard to predict for the future, especially now we are in the era of the explosion of AI stuff, right? Probably that will change everything in the future. So what will happen? Let's see.